On the streets, my brother's dying, and I hear the mothers crying, crying out, and the way that things are.
So my title is In Symbiosis or as Counterparts. I was a bit in doubt about the title because actually I felt that sometimes agroecology promoters are at odds with the market or marketing or say the private sector. Yeah, they are very good in promoting agroecology, but yeah, they forget that there normally should be a market, that farmers need to sell some products. Even when we talk about subsistence farmers, they also have to sell some product to pay for the daily necessities. My background is in tropical agriculture. I graduated in a time when the international organic market was just started. So, by chance, I became involved in the first organic coffee, the first organic tea, the first organic cotton, the first organic bananas on the European market. I continued working in developing value chains most of my life, you can say, although we also went into researching value chains and training, building up capacity in value chains. My story is based on three main experiences, you can say. The EPOPA project, where it was already mentioned. At the end of the EPOPA project, we kind of left East Africa. It was really the idea that the East Africans, of whom we had built capacity, they would continue with the whole process. Yeah? So we moved to West Africa, where we kind of started a similar process. Then, more recently, I was involved in comparative research organized by FIBO, the International Institute for Organic Farming, comparing high and low conventional with high and low organic input farming. That gave me some observations where I will talk about. And nowadays I'm working with IFON in the project Organic Markets for Development, where we try to include all the, say, experiences from the last 30 years into developing organic markets for West Africa. I've been involved in many products, the traditional commodities, the coffee, the cocoa, the cotton, but also the so-called non-traditional exports, the smaller things like herbs, like essential oils. We've also been involved in aquatic products, some processing. I mean, a lot of people talk or like value addition, but I can tell you that it is very difficult to make a marmalade in Tanzania, as we have the experience, that can compete on the international market. Yeah? Africa does not have too much comparative advantage when it comes to processed products, unfortunately. We never worked on the staple foods, even when they were in the organic farming system, because the staple foods really cannot be exported. Yeah? And it is until today that sometimes it's cheaper to import maize from the United States than to try to collect maize here in Africa. Now, I work on cassava in Ghana, and in the middle of the country, so not in the port, but in the middle of the country, there is a man making pastries from organic, from cassava flour, and he imports it from Thailand because he finds it too difficult to get the product organized in Ghana itself. Because the product quality is irregular, the farmers are not reliable, yeah? And when the business goes well, they want to increase their price. The transport is not reliable, so he says, sorry boys, I'm importing my cassava flour from Thailand. And we did not work on the local market because it was an export promotion program. So this is a This is a POPA program. I want to mention the donor investment. Yeah, SIDA was the donor. It was almost a commercial investment because they invest $40 million US, and as a result, there are 60,000 smallholders, 35 businesses, business combinations, you can say, benefiting the farmers directly with $3 million a year higher income, yeah, and exporting and benefiting the country with the 25 million exports per year. Yeah? So it is almost a commercial investment. I think that is one of the reasons that they stopped with it. The main thing with EPOPA was it was 10 years or 13 years. It was quite a major push to get organic agriculture, on the radar or established in East Africa. All the time, it was all about smallholder farmers. Yeah, you don't have to, if you want to have organic products or conversion to organic agriculture, you don't have to worry too much about, say, commercial operators. They know how to collect their information. They usually can manage, say, the technical problems. So the focus was also always on smallholder farmers. There's still talk about subsistence farmers, but I'm not sure. Of course, there are many smallholder farmers who grow their own consumption, their own food, but I don't know any farmers that are not selling any excess crops or that not have a cash crop. Smallholder farmers are very nice to work with from environmental or ecological perspective because they are small scale, they work in diversified landscapes, have a much better biodiversity. They do have a crop to sell. They eat some food, they eat the crop themselves, but then they store some and they sell it week by week on the local market to buy daily necessities. And when they have a more of a cash crop, they have something like a bulk harvest that they have to sell in one go. And that money they can use for so-called investments. I mean, not big money, but that is the time that they can think about their housing, about their tricycle, about their telephone, etc. We do see in Africa that also conventional farmers, so farmers in general, struggle with the market. The markets are not very well developed in Africa. Bad roads, bad communication, no finance, lack of the private sector. There is not a private sector here like you have in Latin America and certainly not like in Asia. So a lot of farmers are stuck with their products or get a low price for their products. Improving marketing, even when not organic, already makes a big change. What is the organic intervention? We always work with the value chain approach, and that means that somebody needs to organize it. So you need a lead firm. It can also be a farmer organization, and then you need, field officers, documentation officers, an extension person, some sort of an inspector type of person. You need staff, you can say. You have to be very aware of quality. If you want to go into export markets or even local markets, you have to be very much aware of quality, hygiene, for example. And then with smallholder farmers, you have grower group certification. That means that there is an internal control system, that is ICS abbreviation, internal control system, or internal, smallholder management system, you can call it. Meaning that farmers need to be registered, their farms need to be registered, farmers need to be trained, and then it needs to be followed up whether they are really implementing the standards, you can say. And that includes an activity what's called the annual internal inspection. Group certification means that farmers are responsible as a group for the fact that all farmers are organic. So when one farmer uses chemicals, the others are to react and say, hey, this product should no longer be sold organic, because the risk is that when residues are found in the product, the whole group of farmers is decertified. Yeah? And that's why they have this internal responsibility to look over each other's shoulder. Yeah? That sounds a bit negative, yeah? But it also can create group dynamics, that they act together to improve their situation. And when the product is marketed as organic, there's a premium paid, and this premium pays for, say, the project organization, can pay for inputs, can pay for the certification, and can pay a better price to the farmers. So it's a self-financing mechanism. So that sounds like a very interesting pathway, I would say, to improve farm practices, including agroecological practices, to work on the income of the farmers, and to improve livelihoods. Yeah? But you need to build a value chain. This is an example of a value chain. I don't go into detail. In the middle you see the so-called primary value chain, the farmers that need to be organized. In this case, in a CREMA, a Community Resource Management Association, which I think from the perspective of agroecology is very interesting. It's not a cooperative, but it's a Community Resource Management Association. Then the farmers do on-farm some processing, in this case drying. Then there's a community milling station. Then a buyer is coming who pays, who weighs, who does administration. And then it goes to, it's shipped. There's an importer. Yeah? The best projects are actually when there's a partnership between the importer with the farmers, yeah? So-called vertical integration. Yeah? And then there's retail and consumers. Yeah? That all happens in an environment, an enabling environment, and sometimes a not so enabling environment. Yeah? And then the primary value chain is supported by, say, service providers, yeah? Which includes your Ministry of Agriculture or departments of your Ministry of Agriculture, NGOs, financial banks, rural banks, yeah? Input suppliers, etc. 2 more slides. So then we did this ProEco-OFSA research, comparing organic with conventional farming, and we selected 6 sites, you can say, in 3 countries, with fairly mature organic projects, organic farmers, yeah? I think sets of 200 farmers each, comparing them with, say, neighboring conventional farmers. Yeah? And we did data collection for 3 years, and there I saw some, say, cracks in the dream, the organic dream, because you saw a number of things. That when the project is really set up to export one thing, like coffee, yeah, it may ignore the rest of the farm. Yeah? You can even have organic certification of just a field, and who cares about the rest? That is fine as long as the farmers don't use chemicals in the rest of the farm, or when they are organic in the rest of the farm. But we've seen recently, say, the contamination of also organic fields with, well, thank you, glyphosate, yeah? Coming in from the maize, yeah, the food crop of the farmers. You also see that organic projects, whether they are certified or not, they usually are started with a lot of enthusiasm, but when there is no market or when there's continuous market problems, they fail. Yeah? So, project may be started with the promise of a market, the promise of a premium, yeah? But they can also stop when that market doesn't become reality. You see sometimes that the farmers have crops in the rotation that are also organic, are not exported, yeah? Because most exporters are monocrop, it's either coffee, yeah? It's quite exceptional when the exporter also wants to buy the vanilla, but he's not going to buy the ginger or the yellow root from the same farming system. So then very often the farmer organization is not able to find markets for the other crops in the farming system. And it means that the whole organic thing leans on this one crop that is certified. You often see that exporters, well, you always see that exporters start saving money. You also see that farmer organizations are often stagnating, do not continue to provide incentives to their field staff. So also there you see some stagnation. Yeah? Meaning there is no continuous improvement, there's nothing going on. Yeah? And then you get this intrusion of these chemicals from outside. Yeah? We also saw very clearly that in organic by default organic projects, by low input, so passive organic farming, there may be land degradation, same as in conventional low input farming. Yeah, so there are some things to say about the agroecological content of some of these export projects. Another observation is that the organic certification means that there should be a certain conversion program. Yeah, farmers have to wait for 2-3 years before they can sell the product from a field as organic because there may be mold contamination, etc. That's why Europeans and Americans have a conversion period. Nobody pays the farmer for that for their product during that period. So what you see is to start organic farming, the African farmer often opens a new field. Yeah? So you actually encourage, yeah? Well, deforestation is a little bit big word, but there's indeed shifting cultivation, slash and burn, yeah? To start your organic farming on a fresh, newly opened field. Not so agroecological. Yeah? So you then also see that, thank you, you also see that because smallholder farming is often, starting from the slash and burn, that when it is a passive or not so active organic system, that you fail to make a permanent system. Farmers have to continue opening new fields to continue. Last slide. So to have a more positive impact from this organic market, yeah? At the moment, the EU is revising the grower group certification criteria. IFOAM is in the position to lobby, to stress that it should really be full farm conversion. Yeah? It should also stress that there should be active organic practices. Yeah? When you don't use any fertilizers, sorry, your soil degrades. It should not be possible to certify it as organic. Yeah? There should be continuous improvement, and there should be, when it is an exporter-led or an exporter-pulled project, there should still be some sort of farmer organization. Yeah? There must be a farmer organization. Then some products are exported, but then there should also be more attention for marketing the other organic products on the local market. Yeah? So there should be alignment with PGS, etc. Yeah? The other bottleneck that I see is that there is really need for leaders, for project organizers, for field officers, to organize the value chain. Yeah? And I do not see too many places where these people are generated, apart from in practice. So I have high hopes that the GIZ, the Knowledge Hub, for example, can really help in generating the capacity on low level, on the medium level, project people, field officers, to get organic more off the ground.